Spotlighting Hawaii's leaders.
We want to bring in Governor David E.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Lieutenant Governor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Mayor Derek Kawakami.
Thank you so much, Senator, for being here.
Spotlighting the issues.
Where is the virus right now in our community?
How much is this overall going to cost the state?
How are you responding to the community's concerns? Talk about the level of citations that you guys are writing.
Spotlight Hawaii with Yunji Denise and Ryan Kalei Suji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Longstrugs.
Aloha and happy Aloha Friday. I'm Ryan Kalei Suji for Spotlight Hawaii. Of course, Yunji Denise normally joins me here for our conversations on this show. However, she has the morning off, but the show goes on. Today, we're going to be focusing on an issue that has really made headlines over the last year or so. And of course, we're talking about what's happening over at Red Hill. Joining me this morning is Ernie Lau from the Board of Water Supply. Ernie, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me.
Good morning, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
You know, we have a lot to get to, and there's no shortage of topics when we have this conversation. But I'm wondering if we can just start broadly, just kind of taking a look at where we're at right now through this Red Hill crisis, and what are some of the things that the Board of Water Supply directly are working with right now with regards to what's happening with Red Hill.
Yeah, with the Red Hill situation, you know, we still have 3 Board of Water Supply wells that are shut down. Because of the aquifer contamination in the area of the Red Hill fuel facility, our Halawa Shaft, IA wells, and Halawa wells. And because of that, we've asked our customers to look at conserving water by reducing their water use by about 10%. And it's a voluntary request right now. We anticipate expecting that to continue into the summer. We saw some of the National Weather Service reports, excellent reporting on the hurricane season, and also projecting that we'll see probably a drier than normal summer conditions. So,
yeah, let's talk a little bit about that voluntary water usage and that reduction that you've asked residents of Honolulu to participate in. Have you seen any reduction? Do you see that people are heeding the call by the Board of Water Supply to reduce their water usage?
Yeah, we're starting to see that, and we're hearing actual cases where people have actually taken action to reduce their water usage. In the IA Halawa system, you know, that's the smaller of the 2 water systems that are impacted with the shutdown of the 3 wells. We've seen water use now actually dip below 3 million gallons a day. The peak summer demand is typically on the order of 4 million gallons a day for that water system. And so that's where, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, just to kind of follow up on that, when we're looking at the summer months, how does that, with the projections that you just mentioned earlier about having a drier summer, what sort of impact will that have to customers moving forward?
We know that typically when the weather is hot and dry, water use increases. So that's something we'll be continuing to request our customers to really be careful in how they use water and try to cut back on their usage. But we anticipate it'll be on a voluntary basis. One of the things we just recently did, we took a well called Ka'amilu Wells. And Ka'amilu Wells normally supplies the Honolulu water system. So we are able to manipulate the water system, and actually now we're sending the water from that well into the Aya Halawa system. So that's added some capacity to that system. So at this time, we kind of anticipate for the Aya Halawa system, with that added capacity, that we'll be able to stay out of the critical water shortage condition, just be in the alert water shortage condition. The alert water shortage condition is still a serious condition because it means our pumps are maybe operating 20 hours a day. And at the most, they can operate 24 hours a day. But we, in an alert condition, they're operating about 20 hours a day. At this point, we only foresee the need for voluntary conservation going into summer, but we're watching things very carefully. Should they change?
And what would trigger maybe a mandatory water reduction, and what would that look like? Are there benchmarks? Are there specific parameters around that where that activation actually kicks in and it becomes not voluntary but mandatory?
So mandatory water conservation requirements kind of kick in at the time when our well pumps are now operating 22 hours a day or longer. At the most, remember, they can operate 24 hours a day to keep up with the daily water demand. And if they're operating at 22 or 24 hours a day, and the demand for water is actually greater than what the pumps are supplying, then we see the water levels in our tanks start to drop lower. So that's concern. So at that point, if we have to implement mandatory restrictions, like say on cutting back on outdoor water usage, we would go before our water board and make a recommendation to the board, and the board would be the one to actually make the decision. It'll be a very transparent and public process, though, and everybody will, be able to see in advance that we are headed in that direction.
One of the things that we've talked about in this conversation when talking about this water conservation and projections moving forward and looking forward has been that of developments that are happening and projects that are coming up, especially in Honolulu's urban core, that are going to require buildings that will need access to water and the demand that could go up. Has there been any change into the board's ability to grant constructions and projects the ability to have access to water? What, has that criteria at all been discussed or changed as you're also discussing these potential water issues?
We have reached out to the development and construction industry just to alert them to the situation and educate them in terms of the progression. So it'll progress from normal operations where we can supply water all the time, no problems, to alert water shortage condition, where it's voluntary conservation, to critical water shortage condition. So at this time, we see that there is no moratorium anywhere in our Board of Water Supply system in the Honolulu or the IL water system. So we're still granting meters to new projects that are being developed. What we are looking at is trying to ensure that there's enough extra capacity in the system to meet the future demands. We've also tried to quantify as best as we can what the future demand might look like over the next few years. So for the Honolulu water system, just to give a status right now, the typical maximum day or summer demand is about 74 million gallons a day, and that happens usually during the summer periods. Historically, that's been a time where when people are using the water the most during the year. What we're looking at right now, at about 74 million gallons, we'll probably be in an alert water shortage condition. Our target is to get our Kalihi pump station, which was under repair prior to the Red Hill situation, back in service, get at least 3 of the 5 pumps operating again in time for summer. And also 2 of the 3 wells that are out of service, our Halawa wells in the Pearl Harbor area, get them working again in time for the summer months. And with that, we think we can push the threshold when we hit a critical water shortage condition. We may have to consider mandatory conservation measures up to about 80 million gallons a day. So the historical maximum day demand is about 74 million gallons a day for the Honolulu water system. And what we're looking at is now capacity to accommodate up to about 80 million gallons a day. At 80 million gallons a day or greater, that's when we'll see our pumps start to run 22 hours a day or longer. And that's when we may have to take stricter measures, but only if we hit that point.
You mentioned in that response a few efforts to repair some of those other facilities and other pumps, and there has been some statements made by officials that if all the pumps in the stations were up and operational and fixed, that we would be able to meet the demand that the island needs when factoring in that the Halawa Shaft is not operational at the moment. Could you provide any update on some of the facilities that require repairs or upgrades in order to help increase the overall demand?
Actually, I think you're talking about the overall supply.
Supply, excuse me.
So,
Yes.
Well source supply. And, respectfully, I appreciate the comments made by certain folks on that. And just say that, they're partially correct, that we have pumps under repair. But I'd like to point out the Board of Water Supply, we depend on groundwater, and we have to basically, most of that groundwater, we have to pump it from underground using pumps and motors, electrical and mechanical equipment. And island-wide, we have almost 200 of these pumps. So at any given time, there will be some that are out of service, undergoing maintenance and repair. Some will break down unpredictably. It's much like your car. Your car, you can't run your car all the time and expect it to be fully working. Over time, you have to do maintenance and you have to do a repair. Sometimes your radiator will start to leak and you have to replace your radiator or your alternator or change your oil. So likewise, our pumping systems are mechanical, electrical systems that need periodic maintenance. One thing I'm going to point out, the situation that we're in right now. So Honolulu, we had some of those pumps under repair prior to the Red Hill situation. But also what's very important to remember, we also had Halawa Shaft, one of our largest water sources for urban Honolulu, operational. It could produce 10 million gallons a day, and during the summer months go up to 14 million gallons a day from that one well source, which we no longer can pump safely until we know for sure there's no chance of fuel contamination getting into that well and into our water system. So right now we're having to adjust without Halawa Shaft being part of the reserve capacity that we normally would have. So we're working hard to get Kalihi Pump Station back in service, at least 3 of the 5 pumps. This is a 122-year-old facility. It was undergoing an $18 million renovation before the Red Hill crisis hit in November of last year. So we're trying to get those pumps running even before the whole project is fully completed. Also, two out of the 3 wells that are out of service at Kalawao, if we can get those wells back in service in time for summer, we should be in good shape going into the summer. And we're also doing something that we haven't done for a long time. We're now bringing 2.5 million gallons a day of water from as far away as the Waipahu, Waipio area to actually pump that water into urban supply Honolulu's water needs. We're making sure that the Waipio system has enough for its needs, but we're taking some of the excess capacity and bringing it into Honolulu. So all these actions are in response to the Red Hill situation.
And let's dive a little deeper into what's happening at Halawa, and I want to ask for your thoughts. Recently the Department of Health released maps that were illustrated the plume of petroleum contamination, and I'm wondering if you can explain a little bit about what those maps revealed about the situation at Red Hill and what we're looking at overall long term of what these maps help to illustrate.
Yeah, Ryan, I want to say this before I forget. I do appreciate the Department of Health issuing the latest emergency order, which not only requires the defueling, but also the permanent closure of the Red Hill fuel facility. So really mahalo to Dr. Char, the Director of Health. What those maps revealed at the Fuel Tank Advisory Committee meeting the other Friday was basically in a very pictorial or visual way, translate data that's in numbers and in spreadsheets from laboratory reports and translate that into a visual image of what the fuel contamination, how the plume moved and shrank and expanded over time at the Red Hill area after before the May event, and also to earlier this year. So it really showed to me that fuel is spreading. It is also moving potentially in a westerly direction across Halawa Valley, which is very concerning because on the other side of the valley, you have the Board of Water Supply wells and also a Navy well too on that side of the valley. What it also to me showed that we need to drill more monitor wells, especially in the valley itself, because the plume looked like it was receding at times and it moved to a certain location, but it only moves where there was actually data where there's an existing test well or monitor well. It didn't show anything going beyond the edges on the Halawa Valley side because there's no data there. There's no test wells to tell us what's underground in the aquifer. It doesn't mean that it's not moving in that underground aquifer in the valley. And we need to drill more wells to give a better picture, a more complete picture. But mahalo to the Department of Health. I've been urging transparency of information and reports, and also communicating in ways that people can understand easily, taking the complicated data, thousands of data points, and translating that into images.
Yeah, we know that the public definitely appreciates that as well, because sometimes it can be overwhelming with all the data and the dates and what's happening in certain areas of the island. So those visual representations do help to explain the picture. I wanted to talk about some of that. You highlighted transparency and communication in your response, and I wanted to touch upon how that is going with the Navy. You've been on this program in the past, sharing your frustrations about the communication efforts with them. Of course, they have committed to defueling Red Hill, but I'm wondering if you can speak about their involvement and their commitment to this process of defueling, and what you've heard and seen in your experience lately working with them.
We're still waiting to see the reports. Remember earlier this year, they said that there would be an investigative report completed by mid-January. And then they had to do a supplemental report into trying to document or investigate what happened last year that led to the leaks in the Red Hill facility, and back to May and November. We're still waiting to see those reports. And the latest report that they indicated they had received just recently from their consultant was actually the assessment of how they could safely defuel the facility, remove the fuel from the tanks and the pipelines. That report's apparently in their hands right now, and we're looking forward to very shortly getting a copy of that report. I think it's very important that we understand what happened last year to better understand where to look for the contamination, and what might have created the groundwater contamination heat maps that the Department of Health shared last week.
They have outlined their plan and timeline for this process, and I'm wondering, based on your experience with them, how confident are you that they are going to be able to stick to this timeline and be able to really live up to their promise of defueling? Is there anything of concern when looking at that plan for defueling that makes you wonder if this timeline is realistic, and how do we hold them accountable for the things that they say they're going to be doing?
Yeah, actually, I'm unclear on the timeline for defueling. I'm waiting to see their consultant's report to say what improvements are needed and how long it'll take to accomplish that, and then to defuel. I am concerned that the timelines may be too long. You want to do it safely, but also you want to get the fuel out of there as quickly as you can safely, because it continues to be a threat for further damage to our aquifer with more leaks. My experience with the Navy has been you need to stay on them. You need to keep on monitoring the situation, and reminding them that you're still waiting for the information, that you need to see it. Because if we go silent, I think the timelines might stretch out. So I know the health department has put some in their new emergency orders, some pretty aggressive timelines. I really hope the Navy can stick to that and meet those timelines.
Well, we have asked a representative from the Navy to come on this program to speak about the timeline and that plan, and they have committed to doing so. So hope maybe we may get some answers for you. We'll definitely follow up on some of the issues that you have just brought up and see what the response will be.
Ryan, that hasn't been the first time that we've learned about something through actually the media sharing it with us. So we appreciate you sharing that information if you do get it.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep you posted on that. I wanted to talk, of course, about some of those that were impacted the most by the crisis at Red Hill. And of course, that is the military families. They are back at home and are having access to water. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about that water that they are currently having access to, where that water source is coming from, and how things were diverted in order to ensure their safety for the families that are on these military bases.
Thank you, Ryan. From what I understand from the limited knowledge of the Navy's water system, that they have primarily 3 water sources for their drinking water. One is Red Hill Shaft, which is heavily contaminated with fuel right now, and they're trying to clean it up. The other is Halawa Shaft, a smaller source near the entry point into Aiea town off the freeway. And the third is their largest water source over in the Pearl City area, Pearl City Industrial Park. It's called Waiawa Shaft. I believe right now two of the three sources are not operating, and only Waiawa Shaft is supplying the entire base. So the Navy families are getting water, I believe, from their Waiawa Shaft, which is many miles to the west of the Red Hill fuel tanks.
And when you talk about the importance of the Halawa Shaft, you've said in the past that you may never know if this is a source that could be ever tapped again because of the damage that has been done, and it may be to a point where it is non-operational ever again. Could you explain about the process right now about making those types of determinations about if and when this Halawa Shaft and aquifer will ever be deemed safe to use and tap once again?
I think what we saw last week with those heat maps that the Department of Health shared about the contamination is even gives, I think, rise to even more reason that the investigation to the extent of the aquifer contamination needs to proceed quickly and aggressively. The issues of Halawa Shaft, right now it's indefinitely shut down until we can be sure if we turn it back on, there's no chance that we're sending fuel-tainted water into our water system. So what we're doing is, rather than waiting a number of years for that determination, we're actually proceeding on different tracks, different solutions that will help address this situation. One is the development of new wells that are outside the area of potential impact from the Red Hill contamination that can help to replace the capacity that is currently offline. So we're looking at 5 or 6 wells in different locations and moving forward to drill the test wells to determine the quality of the water at that point, at that location, and also the quantity of water. And then proceed to construct these new well facilities to supply water to Honolulu and to Aiea Halawa. We're also looking at moving water around our water system, like what I just mentioned, 2.5 million gallons a day now coming from as far west as Waipio. To help supply Honolulu's water needs. We're looking at other ways to connect our water system and interconnect it better so that we can move water from one area to another area more easily. And then definitely water conservation is part of the solution here too.
Another topic that has come up, and we've heard actually candidates running for office speak about this specifically when talking about the crisis at Red Hill, was the need for expansion for desalination of the process of that and building plants. We know that there is a project in the works right now that the Board of Water Supply is active in. Can you give us a little update on that process of desalination and that plant that you folks are looking to stand up?
Thanks, Ryan. We are actually actively in the procurement process now for a seawater desalination plant located in the Campbell Industrial Park area. We got some land from the federal government free of cost, and one of the requirements was to do desalination on that site. So we're proceeding with that project. The other reason for us to proceed with the project is we need to look at diversifying our resource base. Should we, like we see now, this is the 3rd year of a La Nina condition that the Weather Service indicated we're in. Could this be the beginnings of multi-year drought conditions? In the future, due to climate change, could we see drier weather, less rainfall, less recharge of our aquifer, diminishing capacity in our aquifer? So we need to look at other ways to provide water to our community and diversify our resource base. So desalination is one of them. Our intention is to target getting the plant operational once we've selected a contractor to do this, to get it operational early 2025. It'll be a design, build, construct, and maintain, and they'll be required to operate it for 20 years.
Okay, thanks for that update. There obviously has been so much that has happened around the Board of Water Supply within the past few months, but many continue to applaud the efforts that you have had and the effort, the leadership that you've shown during this crisis. You've been honored by the legislature as well for your efforts. I'm wondering if you can talk about how life has been recently for you. Have things calmed down? How has this been for you going and dealing with this crisis?
Yeah, I tell you, it's been a pretty stressful situation for the last 6 months. But I'm trying to hold up as best as I can. I want to make it very clear. It's not I'm just one person, and it's the entire 550 people here that work at the Board of Water Supply that I have the honor and privilege of working with them. The women and the men here at the BWS that are all contributing toward this effort, that they work hard to maintain the water systems and also to ensure that we can provide water 24/7 to our community, safe drinking water reliably to our community. For myself, I try to deal with the stress. Ryan, I walk my dog twice a day just to get out and to be with her. And even if it's raining, I'm out walking my dog. Actually, when I'm walking my dog, I'm out praying, asking Keakua to provide rain to help recharge the aquifer and reduce water demand. But that's how I manage stress. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, well, you seem to obviously have a lot on your plate, and again, you've really we see it in the comments in other shows that we've done, as well as what we're hearing from officials applauding your efforts and what you've done during this crisis. As we wrap up this conversation this morning, I want to just give you a final opportunity, your message to those out there watching, whether it be about the water demand right now, about water conservation, or anything else that you want to share as we wrap this up this morning.
Thank you, Ryan. Right now, we have this 10% water conservation challenge. It's asking everybody to reduce their water use by 10%, and I know we can do it. We're not, and hopefully we don't have to get to the place of mandatory or conservation measures in the summer, and we're trying to add more capacity to our water system through various means to actually avoid that happening. And there is no moratorium on new water meters for developments. Although the amount of development that we foresee coming down the road or down in the pipeline coming toward us is pretty substantial, kind of unprecedented growth, especially with the need for affordable housing. So that's why we need to aggressively pursue development of new source capacity to meet those future demands and requirements. So mahalo, everybody, for your water conservation efforts.
All right, Ernie Lau from the Board of Water Supply. Thank you so much for updating us on Red Hill and everything that is happening there at the Board of Water Supply. Always appreciate having you on, and look forward to more conversations with hopefully some progress in the right way in the future.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. Aloha. Well, great to hear from Ernie Lau this morning. You heard his update. Some good news in the sense that the conservation efforts and the volunteer cutback of water that the Board of Water Supply has been asking those residents here on the island of Oahu to partake in is catching the attention of users here in the area, that they are comfortable with their levels right now and that they will continue to monitor it. No mandatory water usage or mandatory efforts to cut back for water usage for those residents here in Oahu is slated or scheduled. Of course, going into the summer months, they will continue to monitor this. But we heard from him other various ways that the Board of Water Supply is looking to meet the demand that is needed for water here on the island. We heard him say that they are actually moving water from different sources all the way as far west as Waipahu over into the urban core to help meet the demand here in Honolulu. And they are looking at other measures to really make sure that they can shore up some of those other wells that had some issues in the past to make sure that those are online and being able to fulfill the demand, of course, that was needed during this loss of the Halawa Shaft and the amount of water that it's applied to the urban Honolulu area. We also heard from him saying that there is no moratorium right now or restrictions that will be placed on those who are seeking water for development, that is a conversation that does not need to be happening. But he did state that with the amount of projects and planning that is happening, especially around the talk of affordable housing in the urban core, the conversations about water usage and its supply and how it gets to these areas is something that they will have to look at. And that is why he is making every effort to ensure that water is available through those various sources as they look for ways to fulfill what has been lost with that Halawa Shaft. We also heard from him on the update with the military saying that he is still waiting on some specific reports that help to illustrate the extent of the Red Hill damage. But he is yet to get that from the military or from the Navy. And so, as I mentioned, we were looking to speak to someone from the Navy about the situation at Red Hill and get their timeline and some of the answers that have gone unanswered to people like Ernie Lau at the Board of Water Supply, and hoping that they will be able to shed some light on some of these things that Ernie Lau brought up today in this conversation, as well as other conversations in the past. So we always enjoy having him on this program to give us an update on the situation at Red Hill. We're looking forward to another full week of conversations next week here on Spotlight Hawaii. We will be kicking off the week on Monday, speaking with somebody in the hospitality industry and someone who manages that. We will be speaking with the head of the Hawaii Tourism Authority, getting an update on what is happening, especially as we head into these summer months and the increase in travel that is expected, how HTA is planning to respond to the demand of visitors that want to come to the islands, as well as the overall impact that is having here with residents as well. We'll also be traveling to Maui to speak and catch up with Mayor Victorino about some of the issues that are happening there as well. We look forward to those conversations next week. We hope you'll join us right back here for another episode of Spotlight Hawaii on Monday at 10:30 right here on the platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. Until then, take care and have a great weekend. Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Long's Drugs.